Hello, my foolish mortals. I am your host, and Sorry, I was saying, welcome, foolish mortals. Excuse me, we have new neighbors, and they are a bit loud. As I said, welcome, foolish mortals, to the haunted. Okay, this is no swinging wake. So this is how the mansion would sound if Carsland was right next to it. Can you believe that Rivers of America is getting filled to build Carsland of all things? Yes, you heard that right. So, a long time ago, before D23, Imagineers had announced that Magic Kingdom would be getting to new lands beyond Big Thunder Mountain. That's right, beyond. The definition of beyond is at or the further side of, and beyond this mountain would be 3 lands, based on this concept art released about a year ago. A Mexican, Hispanic-inspired village that looks more like Coco's village, with Ernesto de la Cruz's tomb right to the left, probably the entrance to Coco's ride, and on the far right, Encanto's casita. Further to the end of the concept art, a dark, ominous, and foggy place with what looks like Maleficent's castle, some towering edifices, and an enormous Chernobog extending his arms above the cursed land. You can even see Bald Mountain's church and some sort of portal to enter Villain's Land. Those were the 3 lands originally thought for beyond Big Thunder, and by the picture standards, it looked like beyond was behind Big Thunder Mountain, where the second bend of Rivers of America is, right where Galaxy's Edge was built at Disneyland, and a bit of space behind that. Then, a couple of months ago, Miguel's casita was moved to Animal Kingdom to be part of a Tropical America's Land along Indiana Jones, which left Coco and Villain's Land as the only 2 neighbors of Big Thunder. When I heard this, I thought Coco was a good fit for Frontierland, for, as the name implies, it is the land that represents the many frontiers the U.S. has had through its history, including New Orleans, St. Louis, and eventually Mexico. In fact, Disneyland Paris does play with the Mexico-U.S. frontier theme, putting the Mexican portion of Frontierland behind Big Thunder. So, Coco was a no-brainer for me, as a continuation of Frontierland and a transition from Coco's Graveyard to Villain's Land, which also seemed to have a connection to Fantasyland, was entirely logical. Then Coco was deleted from the equations, and rumors of Carsland being set behind Big Thunder began to circulate. I was shocked, but again, thought Carsland Canyons kind of fitted Frontierland after all. Then, it was announced Carsland would not be identical to California Adventures Radiator Spring Racers, which also gave me some hope. Then D23 came and it shifted everything. Coco would go to DCA, which I am very happy about. Encanto to Animal Kingdom. Villain's Land would remain behind Big Thunder, and Cars Ride would be there somewhere on an undisclosed place. Then, on the next day, this concept art was announced. Rivers of America will be transformed into a racetrack. Frontierland in Magic Kingdom right now has some serious identity issues. It has a ride located at the bayou next to a mountain themed to a southern canyon, after an entire block of southwestern edifices. If you consider Liberty Square a neighbor of Frontierland due to the rivers, the Haunted Mansion is supposed to be in the edges of the Hudson River. We've even called the Haunted Mansion in this channel, the Magic Kingdom one, as Hudson River Haunted Mansion, with the river stressed in it. The Liberty Tree is somewhere on the coast of Massachusetts, and a Hall of Presidents is somewhere on the verge of a river in Pennsylvania. Now, This carefully crafted theming, which was supposed to represent the history of the United States going from the original 13 colonies into the West and the Southwest, with the building numbers representing the years, with Hall of Presidents and Haunted Mansion being the oldest, probably 18th century representations, to Big Thunder being the newest one, representing Gold Rush at the mid or late 19th century. Tiana kind of interrupted that idea, both because of the time and because of the place. Tiana occurs on the 1920s, when right next door, Big Thunder is supposed to be happening about 60 years before Tiana. Yet someone cleverly suggested, and I don't remember who, but they did in the internet, that by retheming a section of Frontierland to St. Louis and New Orleans Square, and the area behind Big Thunder as a southwest transition into Cars Ride, the idea of America moving west could be preserved along with justifying Tiana's Bayou adventure along the way. But now, ladies and gentlemen, all that has gone to waste, since Rivers of America, the quaint backdrop to all these lands, will be filled and now will contain, of all things that it could contain, a Cars Ride. I'm going to remain in silence for a while for you to absorb the notion of cars running in the middle of Liberty Square and Frontierland. How does this have to do with the 18th century and 19th century frontier goes beyond, pardon the pun, beyond me? For me, it's an unnecessary theming mess. It's like putting another land right in the middle of a delicate ecosystem of rides that depended on the river as a backdrop, including our dearly beloved Haunted Mansion. As I explained in a short video, the plan is now to drain the river and create a path next to the Haunted Mansion that will lead to Villain's Land. Next to that path will be a low, rocky range, some trees, and a Cars Ride, which will be able to watch from the cemetery of the mansion. If you ask me, I completely hate this. This destroys an idea that improved the idea and the design of Frontierland. This is just retrofitting something that does not belong to somehow belong in there. This proves that there is nothing untouchable or sacred in the park, and that anything, including pirates, Haunted Mansion, Small World, Space Mountain, hell, and the castle itself, could change into fit a future IP. What's next? Will the Haunted Mansion be home to Nightmare Before Christmas all year long? Well, we almost have that in California, don't we? You can see how nothing at all, is untouchable. And yes, Disneyland and Walt Disney World by extension are not a museum, but true fans may understand what I'm trying to say. The misuse of Walt Disneyland will never be complete meant not changing the rides, but always expanding or improving them, and this will definitely not be an expansion or an improvement on the Rivers of America. Magic Kingdom has always had some sort of disrespect for the idea that Walt mentioned about the blessing of space. Do you remember Walt Disney so happy about having all this space on Orlando and being able to build Epcot, which was supposed to be a city in itself, and the Magic Kingdom far away from society, and with all this space for future expansions. Remember that. That means putting more on the park, making the park go beyond its berm and beyond its actual extension. Not within it, but outside of it. And with so much space available, Magic Kingdom appears to have dedicated itself to remove all rides and install new ones in them instead of expanding the park. And you know which kind of things I mean. Snow White, which became a princess meet and greet. Mr. Toad, which is one of the most famous cases, which became Winnie the Pooh and a gift shop. I have nothing against Winnie the Pooh, but Winnie the Pooh could have fitted somewhere else. That's why they created the Little Mermaid right there. There was space, but they didn't want to use it right there. And now we have the Rivers of America. And if I'm missing an attraction, please put it in the comment section, because I don't remember all the defunct attractions from Florida that were used to replace with something else. But now Rivers of America is going to join those defunct attractions. How will this affect the Haunted Mansion in Florida? I know you're all Haunted Mansion fans. That's why you've joined my channel and you've subscribed and you're here now. So how will this affect the Haunted Mansion in Florida? That's what we want to know. And we know it will affect it. So on the short term, the mansion, I think, and I don't have any information for this, but I think it's safe. The atmosphere will be altered with cars running around the property, and with the lack of water, I don't feel the place as isolated as I used to feel about it. You know, having this riverfront estate makes it a very important thing. Like when you walk from Frontierland to Liberty Square, you can see the mansion right in front of you, and you can see its reflection on the water. And when you are in the Haunted Mansion queue and you look to your left, there is nothing. You're alone in the mansion, and there's this big body of water that separates you from it. And that's the last look you have before entering the dark world of the Haunted Mansion. It's very important from the introduction because it actually separates you from the rest of the happy lands, because Disneyland is a very happy place and I'm okay with it. But the Haunted Mansion has this ability to absorb you. And the case of Magic Kingdom is even better than the one in California, because yes, you can see the waters of the Rivers of America from the queue in the Haunted Mansion, but on Magic Kingdom, the river is right next to the queue. There's nothing else in between it. There's not a pathway in between like in California. No, it's just the water. And pardon my rambling, but it's just magical. It isolates you from the rest of the park, and it makes you slowly start to consider the fact that you're entering this haunted estate that you saw from far away. Now you're in it. And so it's a slow, foreboding introduction that's typical to horror movies. It's similar to a slow zoom or a slow dolly in. And I think removing the Rivers of America will kind of end this. Think of it. What will we have right next to it? Let's look at the concept art. It looks like a lot of trees and a path and some sort of small rocky range. The path will be just right next to the queue. You can see it right there, and I'm sure you'll be able to look at people from like next to the queue, just like you do in California. And there will be trees, and it will look like you're in some sort of New England forest, and that's okay, but it's not the same as the rivers. It's not as quaint as the rivers. And I'm sure a lot of trees could hide the Cars ride, which will be behind that, and give the estate the creepy atmosphere it deserves. But I really hope we don't listen to the Cars, as I did in the introduction. On the long run, this means that the Haunted Mansion will eventually be gone to accept a permanent IP within its walls. And this is just my thought. This is not news. Something that will never happen in California, thanks to it having a 6-month-long IP, having some sort of timeshare with the Gracies there in the New Orleans estate. That's the only thing that I think it's saving the Haunted Mansion from ever becoming an IP, because it's already an IP the rest of the year. But who knows if the Haunted Mansion becomes something else in a lapse of 10 or more years. The Haunted Mansion has not had a successful movie. The 2 Haunted Mansion movies there have flopped. The Haunted Mansion movie that was going to be made in the 90s, which was more close to Captain Gore and all of the stories the people have made about the Haunted Mansion, was cancelled. And there is no respect from the company to the Haunted Mansion, because if Rivers of America, which is one of the most iconic things about Disneyland in the last years, so much so that 2 of the international parks have a Rivers of America. It's a staple of the park, just as the castle is. It's like having a park with no castle, or substituting the castle to put a Tower of Terror in it, or a Guardians of the Galaxy in it. Could you imagine? Like, oh yeah, Cinderella Castle, it's going to be retrofitted to Guardians of the Galaxy because it's going to improve capacity, because Cinderella Castle doesn't have any capacity as of now. I mean, this is sort of like the same. It sounds crazy when I talk about it with Cinderella Castle, but this is sort of like the same. Cars don't have anything to do with Rivers of America, and I know it's hard to find something that goes in there that is a ride, but it's just as crazy as that. So that makes me think that the Haunted Mansion could be in risk in the future, because 10 years ago I wouldn't have thought Rivers of America, both in California and Magic Kingdom, would be in risk, and the one in California got shortened. And we're like, oh well, that kind of saves Rivers of America, but no, it got shortened, and who knows what will happen next? Who knows what else could they want to build there? Because Disneyland does need the space. And as a Magic Kingdom 10 years ago, I wouldn't have thought that they would put the Cars Land there, and they're not going to do it. So that makes me think that the Haunted Mansion could be next somewhere in the future. I really hope not, though. What do you guys think? Put it in the comment section, because I really love your opinions, because you're as big of fans as I am. I'm sad for the removal of the Rivers of America, because when Magic Kingdom does something stupid and gets away with it, Disneyland gives it a try. So who knows? Maybe we'll also see that Walt's original park also does away with the iconic Rivers of America, and I definitely hope they don't, because I really like them. As for positive changes with this, the Haunted Mansion will supposedly be given a restaurant in its new path between Villains Land and Liberty Square. I love seeing Disney giving the Haunted Mansion more love for now, so that's amazing. And the restaurant, if it looks a little bit like, if it looks anything like the one they're planning for the Disney cruise, it will be amazing. I've seen those pictures of some special events they did on the Haunted Mansion way like a decade or 2 decades ago, and you can see the tables in the stretching room and the rumors that people have been to the ballroom and so on, and how many of us wouldn't have loved to eat at the ballroom. And knowing that there will be a place themed to the Haunted Mansion and have to have dinner without a river view, of course, will be good. So I'm also talking about the positive changes, and that's... But what do you think about these new changes? Because I've heard mixed opinions about it. I've heard that people say, hey, stop tying yourself to the past. Rivers of America is a lost cause in Magic Kingdom as long as they don't touch it in California. And I don't agree with that, but maybe I'm a more hardcore fan, and I think that there could be another place to build that. But I would like your opinion on it. Perhaps you're like, hey, I'm a Cars Land fan, and I would definitely wouldn't care for it being in the middle of Frontierland, and Frontierland could change its name to Freeway Land, and you can go on the freeway from Massachusetts all the way to Cars Land, to the Bayou, and into Frontierland. Who knows? It could be Route 66 Land or something like that. I don't know. Give me your opinion.